After the coup that the Dracos had pulled, by throwing the Syrians off of the planet, things changed quickly for those left on Earth. The Syrians were at least human, and because of that, had at least a token fondness for their genetically created worker race. The reptiles, however, had no such fondness for the humans beyond their ability to work very hard, and to serve them with unquestioning obedience. Bruised, but not beaten, the Syrians never forgot the Earth, nor their genetically created worker race that was now totally held captive in the most terrible type of bondage possible. According to the Terra Papers, the leader of the Draco lizard takeover bid of the Earth was a hybrid Syrian reptile named Marduk. It was he who had gathered the forces of the Orion lizards to Earth, and then led them in battle against the Syrians and against his own family. Once his victory was achieved, Marduk wanted to make sure that his rule over the Earth would be ironclad and never end. Deciding it best to forever erase their memories of ever being ruled by the Syrian kings, Marduk made sure that every human being's memory was wiped totally clean, by using very advanced technology. He then named himself Ra, the one and only true God. Let's follow the account of Robert Morning Sky's history of planet Earth, by picking it up with what happened here after the takeover of the reptiles. The takeover had been successful. Lord Prince Marduk, first son of the reviled creator god Da, had become the one and only sun god Ra. The Shetty lizards had reprogrammed all remaining subjects on Eridu Earth. The rebel SSATA queens of the Aryan, Orion, underground worlds had given material support to Marduk with the understanding that Shetty lizards would then become the administrators of the new empire. They had done their job well. Marduk would keep them around. For a while. With their memories gone, the beasts, human beings, were now loyal and very eager servants to Ra and the lizards. Other Syrian family members who were trapped on Earth also gave faith and allegiance to Ra, as they too had lost their memories. And so it was that the empire entered a glorious phase. Everyone aspired to the same goal. To praise and serve the sun god Ra. The mystery schools thus became the source of a new breed of priests who had but one thought, to praise the Lord Ra, from whom all things, all beings, all wisdom had come. The secrets of the galaxy, and the universe, came through the mouth of Ra. And so too, the Chirash became targets of the Lord Ra and the Shetty. Where once the teachings were those of Lord Prince Ea, now they were of Ra Leg Us, Ra laws / words of. Place of the words of Ra. Ra Lega / religion. Here too, the purpose of the priesthood and the brotherhood was to perpetuate the confusion on Earth, and to keep the truth away from both humans and Syrian lords alike. Where once all humans and Syrian subjects were forced to praise the Syrian lords, and to ultimately give greater honor to the Aryan queens, now Lord Ra, with the approval of the SSATA rebel queens, began to systematically remove all traces of a mother goddess presence. Henceforth, the omnipotent one was going to be a male, the sun god Ra himself. Males would dominate every aspect of life. It was time for females to relinquish their exalted place of power. The Shetty lizards, with their cousin Hansa lizards, were originally recognized for their uncanny abilities with stone cutting equipment. Using their sound cutters and heat beams with incredible accuracy, the lizards with robot-like precision could produce stone structures that needed no mortar or binding agent to keep them together. These creatures, Shetty and Hansa lizard hybrids, crucial to the ministration of Lord Sun God Ra's empire, were the original stonemasons. Note, the Egyptian glyph for mason is Hunu. Hun is the root word meaning lizard. Hunu is literally -one who is, of the lizards. Commentary: so apparently, the original stonemasons, which morphed into the Freemasons later on, had always been made up of lizards, and were always in service to the reptiles from the very beginning. Moving on with the Terra Papers. The sun god Ra had become the one and only god king of Earth. But the king was very concerned with the lizards. They had become far too powerful. No aspect of the empire was untouched by their hand, no position of administration was devoid of a Shetty/Hinta presence. With great care and secrecy, the sun god Ra attempted to shift the wealth and power away from the lizard controllers. But to no avail. It was too late. The Shetty/Hinta and Seta rebels seized the empire away from Ra. With no battles, with no weapon fire. They simply shut everything off. The sun god could not communicate with anyone, the sun god could not issue orders, the sun god could not rule. The sun god was undone by those who had helped him in the coup against the Syrians. With little recourse, the once and only king fled in his starship back to the heavens. The Shetty lizards changed absolutely nothing. The empire continued functioning as it had before. Though the subjects of Eridu/Earth had been programmed to forget their history, the acceptance and programming of one omnipotent God would not be altered. It served quite well the needs of the lizards. They assumed the role of the Lord of the Words Enlil, they took over the role of the Lord of Creation Prince Ea, and they set up all institutions which would govern man, his life and his destiny. The sun god Ra was gone, the lizard kings were now in charge. Mystery schools were closed by Thutmose, remaining open only to a select few who were going to serve the lizards. Only the stonemason offspring could participate. In every corner of the realm, the Masons, Freemasons, would control the secrets and the hidden knowledge of the universe. The Syrian descendants of the original Nibiru/Syrian lords became huge targets for the new empire. Their wealth and power, inherent birthrights, begin to be stripped away from them. They are viewed as potential threats to the state. The Inibru, Ibru/Hebrew, are treated as complete undesirables and are enslaved by the empire's new order. Thus the Hebrews are children of the former Syrian ruling class, as opposed to the Syrian worker class. The stage for Exodus is set. Moses, an Hebrew, child, is set adrift in a river. An attendant to the princess, the daughter of the Pharaoh, finds the child floating in the reeds. She rescues him and takes him to the princess. The royal maiden takes him to her chambers and raises him as her own. Grown and a young man, Moses now has an opportunity to study in the mystery schools. He learns the ways of the Masons, Freemasons, but is also taught to believe in only one God. In time, Moses discovers his true identity as a son of former Syrian lords. Feeling that he has been betrayed, he strikes out at a guard who has threatened an Ibru slave. The guard dies, Moses becomes a cast out. Living now in the desert mountains, he encounters a small ship, its bright lights are blinding. The crew is composed of Syrians who seek revenge on the lizards. The commander speaks to an awestruck Moses. He promises Moses the Lord of the Word is willing to support him if he moves against the Pharaoh. The commander and crew seek to free the trapped Hebrew descendants from their oppressors. Moses returns to the palace, scared but convinced that a powerful God is behind him. The crew of the Syrian ship and a small backup squadron descend on the palace and its armed guards. They create a series of distractions while Moses is gathering the Ibru people together. Death rains down from the sky on the Pharaoh's people as the Ibru flee with Moses in the lead. The Syrian ships move quickly and decisively. They vow to give their descendants a chance to escape. As the Pharaoh's armies give chase, the Syrian ships attack with destructive laser lights. With one final effort, the starships part the waters of the sea which blocks the exodus. When the Ibru have passed, the waters of the sea are allowed to cascade back on the pursuers. The story of the parting of the waters is true, the Ibru escape because of extraterrestrial assistance. The Syrians leave, their task accomplished. The lizards take notice, but are unconcerned with the effort however, because they are still in control of Earth. Moses continues to be contacted by the Syrian commander. He is told about the Lord of the world and the evil beings who are now in control of the empire. Moses instructs the Ibru to cast the bronze statue of a serpent, the galactic symbol of knowledge and wisdom. It is called Nehushtan. It is a sign to the Syrian kings and the Aryan queens that the Ibru would remain loyal to the true Lord of the Word. The Ibru patriarch is summoned to the mountaintop, and there, to receive once again the commands issued by Prince Enlil. Moses is given 2 flat crystals, each containing an entire library of the history of Earth. Moses brings the crystals down and orders his followers to create a gilded box to house the crystals. When placed inside the A.R.K. the 2 crystals become active and become a communication device. 2 handlers, however, come too close and accidentally touch the ark when it is powering up. They short-circuit the box and totally destroy the crystals. The commander cannot afford additional crystals. Moses, feeling responsible, punishes himself by vowing not to proceed into the promised land when the Ibru arrive. His followers believe that God has punished him for his killing of the guard. The exodus from Egypt has caused the new reptilian empire to search the skies for any and all ships from Sirius or Orion. The Syrian commander and his squadron are now in jeopardy and are forced to leave. Without any communication and support, Moses and the Ibru wander through the desert lands, trying to avoid detection and seeking shelter wherever they can find it. A parched and arid land is found where the tribes finally decide to settle. The lizards believe the Ibru are not even worth the pursuit, and they leave them to die in the desert. The Ibru descendants, tired and hungry, carve out a niche where they will hang on. Much later, a group of Orion, warriors, who had abandoned the queens in power in the Orion stars to join the Syrian forces, leave the new reptilian empire to form a colony of their own in the mountain regions of what is now India. Though they were once Syrian loyalists, they are now known as the Aryans. They are light-skinned, and possessed of a warrior's blood. They move south towards the plateaus. They are all well schooled in Syrian secrets and mysteries, and they establish mystery schools of their own. Promising not to challenge or undermine the new empire, they agree to share their knowledge and their secrets with the Mason, Freemason, Lizard, initiates of the Egyptian Empire. In secret, their loyalty however always remained with the Syrians. The Syrian star beings are known as Sru, Sirius those of. The Aryan religion praises the heavenly beings called Ajra. Faithful to the ways of the Syrians, they establish what has come to known as the caste system, a way in which power is centered in the high priesthood and the elite. The warrior class wields power second only to the elite. The administrators follow, with the beastly undesirables, regular humans, at the bottom of the hierarchy. Obedience is stressed, faithful execution of one's duties will be rewarded in future lives. A search for spiritual enlightenment is discouraged, only service to the gods is the way to heaven. An exact replica of Syrian ways, Hinduism is born. Though confused and misdirected, the Aryan religion uses the symbol of the combined empires of Sirius and Orion as an emblem of its own. When the Aryan queens and the conqueror kings of Sirius joined in alliance, they adopted the sign of a swirling star galaxy as their mark. The four-armed galaxy mark was called SSS.Q, SSS.Ev, swastika. The lizard administrators watched with wary eyes but did not interfere with the Aryans' effort to establish themselves on Earth. Additional religions in Earth did not concern the reptiles in the least. Confusion actually worked to their advantage. Cut off from any heavenly support, no Earth faction was a threat to their power. The lizards were in control. Syrian warriors who had once stood proudly beside an all-powerful sun god Ra were known as the Ra at the side of. Powerful and very courageous, with their memories completely wiped clean, they leave Egypt to settle and lands on the northern shore of what is now the Mediterranean. Called Dicans, Heavenly or Drakans, they become known as Etruscans. They establish the land that will be called Italy. The Ra'im began to build their own empire. Distant long-lost memories of two brothers, Prince Ea and Prince Enlil, both raised in the serious ways and the co-founders of Earth, linger in the minds of the Ra'im. The dim memories of these princes is the foundation of the Ra'im, Roman, tale of Remus and Romulus. The legendary co-founders of Rome, Remus and Romulus, are said to have been suckled and raised by a she-wolf. The Ra'im leaders built a strong empire and began to war with the Egyptians. The lizards are still unconcerned. They have control and do not prevent Roman expansion. They manipulate the leadership of the Ra'im government through mind control. Confusion works well for the purposes of the lizards. Rome is firmly established as an empire. Here is where the story of the Terra Papers comes into the history of Jesus and who he was, and why he may have come to Earth. Isujisu. The SSSM are schooled in the Aryan mystery schools, learning about the nature of reality and magic. They keep to themselves in the desert lands of the ancient Middle East. The initiates believe one of their own can ascend to the throne of Earth. But the anointed one must be descended of the Lord of the Word, Syrian, and must be joined with a descendant of the Mother Goddess, Orion. The SSSM inner circle begins its search for a possible candidate. The future king must be an initiate, schooled in the mystery schools, and yet be one of them. A second group of initiates, schooled in mysteries of the Syrians, secretly align themselves with Asar, Sirius. They are the Anasarim, of heaven Surlis, or Nazarenes. The Nazarim and Ibru initiates with each other for power. A baby is born in the ancient Middle East. He is born of the Syrian line through the house of David. Orion initiates feel he, along with several others, are potential candidates for the kingship of Earth. The Orion Magi, MG, come to pay their respects and to plant the seed of his possible future. As a youngster, Joshua, Jesus, lives a normal life, but upon his coming of age, he is sent to the Eastern Mystery Schools, there to receive his schooling. Joshua learns what the king must know and what he must do. He is taught that he is also the Son of God, the one and only God. He is being groomed for the priesthood and a position of power. The mystery schools must continue to perpetuate the myth of just one God, and that reward comes after death. Salvation is always based upon service to the Church, on sacrifice of self, and unwavering faith. The foundation of the lizard empire is based upon an unquestioning obedience and lack of challenge to God, for in fact, the lizards have assumed the place and guise of God. Joshua becomes an initiate but finds himself questioning that which he has been taught. Something is not quite right, and a deep feeling that there is more than what he is being told haunts him. Vague memories race through his mind, feelings, thoughts of blasphemy and sacrilegious topics flood his very being. He seeks the solace of the desert, perhaps there the uneasiness will abate. He feels he must cleanse his soul. The desert is very lonely at night. Joshua is nervous. When the shadowy figure approached him, he was ready to flee. An unfamiliar recognition soothed his concerns. The stranger in night was an EASU, one of the few remaining teachers of the secrets of Prince Ea. As the teacher sat down next to him, Joshua could sense his life was about to change. For the next hours, the dark stranger began to speak of the mysteries. Joshua was somewhat relieved, he too was an initiate. But as the hours passed by, the stranger added pieces to the puzzle that Joshua had not heard before. Joshua felt an urgent hunger to hear more. The stranger continued. As the hours turned into days, the days turned into weeks. When the time came, the teacher stood up. Joshua was in a state of exhilaration and anticipation. And as quickly as he had appeared, the stranger silently walked away. Joshua, his world turned upside down, sat down and wept. The words of the stranger were true, he knew that. He cried because an entire world that was unaware, and asleep to the truth, was before him. Joshua had been both blessed and cursed. Knowledge unused is knowledge wasted. Joshua had been placed in a situation not of his choosing. At least not in this world. He would have to move, have to act, or be guilty of the crime of inaction and aiding the oppressors of mankind. The KSU would come to him again, Joshua knew that, but any actions taken would have to come from Joshua himself. A time would come when he would have to act, for now he would have to make plans. It would take years, he thought, but it would worth the wait. Joshua was, after all, a chosen one, was he not? He had wondered why the name had been selected, now he knew. He was Iasu. He was Easu too. Iasu had heard that there was another anointed one not far away in the desert. Iasu could sympathize. It was not a great surprise when he discovered that the other one was also of the same bloodline as he was. It was with some dismay, however, that he found out the other one was elder to Iasu, thus requiring Iasu to step aside. But fate was with Iasu, for though John the Baptist took priority because of his age, John's reputation would bring a quick end to his existence. On hearing of the beheading of his cousin John, Iasu continued to plan his future. It had been fortunate that John had baptized him, others would find it much easier to accept his role as a man of the cloth. To become a rabbi, he would have to be married, that was the tradition and law. But to fulfill the prophecies, those requirements for the anointed one demanded that he be wed to a descendant of the mother goddess herself. To that end, Iasu found and took to his side, Mary Magdalene. They were wed and she bore children. Iasu had become full-fledged rabbi, with all appropriate rights and responsibilities. He was both an initiate and an honored rabbi. The early requirements of the prophecies had been fulfilled. It was now time to begin the final stages. Iasu knew he would need public support. Caiaphas, head priest of the temple, and even Pontius Pilate, would find it difficult to attack a man who had the people's sympathy. It would be even worse if he was a holy man. Iasu moved through the countryside, acting as counselor, healer and people's advocate. The masses loved him and his general ways. But in secret, he attacked the Roman guard and stripped them of their weapons. As time passed, he gathered a small group of followers. Though donations were coming in to support his cause, the funds were too small to support an increasing band. It was with some trepidation that he moved to attack the money changers' tables in the marketplace. The plan was simple: Iasu himself would create the distraction, his followers would take the money from the money lenders. Iasu strode purposefully into the marketplace. Everyone felt that the money changers were practicing license thievery, but with the sanction of the temple, the money changers could do as they wished. Assured that the public would give him support, Iasu began to overturn the tables of money. As the people cheered him on, his followers grabbed up the coin that they could, then scattered in all directions when Roman guards appeared. As Iasu had expected, the public supported his action with great favor. The temple Sanhedrin, however, saw him as an outlaw that needed to be disposed of. The plan had been flawless, but the actual execution had resulted in an unexpected outcome. The eldest son of Iasu, in his excitement, had not noticed the guard's arrival. The result was that he had been captured. Iasu was worried, the head priest could put his son to death. His plans were most assuredly dangerous. He had been ready to give up his life, if necessary, but to lose his son would be too much. Iasu's death would not prevent his son claiming the throne, but the death of his eldest son would mean the throne would be lost, gone forever, to everyone in his family according to Syrian law. And so, Iasu planned to free his son. The Sanhedrin had long been searching for him. Iasu would give them the chance to find him. He called for his most trusted disciple Judas, and bade him go to Caiaphas, high priest of the temple, and pretend to betray Iasu. Reluctantly, Judas did so, playing his role to his best. The temple guard arrested Iesu, taking him to Pontius Pilate for execution. But Pilate wished no part of the politics of the Jews. He had been biding his time until he could return to Rome. Any trouble in his outpost would reflect badly on Pilate, and so he rejected any part of the Sanhedrin's plot to kill Iesu. Caiaphas would not be denied. He descended on Herod and demanded the death of the upstart. But Herod did not want a problem with the Romans. If Pilate would have nothing to do with the execution, he too would not bow to the demands of a boisterous Sanhedrin. Turned away again, Caiaphas returns to Pilate. He threatens a revolt of the entire territory should the execution of Iesu is denied him again. But Pilate believes he can outwit Caiaphas. He fabricates an offer of clemency because of a vague holiday. He offers to free any prisoner, anyone the mob chooses. He assumes they will choose Iesu, a rebel king. Iesu's followers immediately call for Barabbas, surprising Pilate. Barabbas is the firstborn son of Iesu. Bar Rabbi, son of the rabbi. Caiaphas' mob also takes up the chant for Barabbas. The death of Iesu is their goal. The prisoner is freed, Iesu's son is safe. But the mob is not satisfied, they are paid to call for the execution of Iesu. Reluctantly, Pilate agrees to whip Iesu to appease the thirsty cries for blood. Pilate whips Iesu, his followers weep. The sight of his blood feeds the frenzy. The rites promised by Caiaphas are about to explode before Pilate. He begs Iesu to recant his claim to kingship of the Jews. Iesu will not. The original plan had been to have Iesu hanged on the cross for crimes to the Roman state. Heresy would suffice if the punishment was the same. While studying in the Far East, Iesu had learned of many medicinal herbs. With the help of Joseph of Arimathea, Iesu had a plan to beat death on the cross. A little-known herb, when ingested, would cause the drinker to lapse into a faint similar to death. This would be the secret that would allow him to become resurrected as only a god could. Iesu is taken to the hillside and crucified. Joseph has bribed the guards. Traditionally, the criminal has his legs broken so that he could not support his weight. This is not done to Iesu. On a given cue, one of the bribed guards places a sponge into the prepared concoction. The sponge is put on the end of his lance and is extended to Iesu to drink. Those nearby believe it to be water, but it smells strangely of vinegar. Iesu drinks greedily. Within moments, his head falls. He is unconscious, everyone believes him dead. A guard who has not been bribed tests to see if Iesu is alive by thrusting his lance in his side. As the spear pierces the side of Iesu, blood flows freely. His still beating heart causes an outpouring of blood. Iesu is still alive. To the horror of Joseph and the disciples, he has been stabbed. Quickly, Joseph comes forward to claim the body from the guards, claiming Iesu is dead. But Hebrew tradition forbade anyone to touch a dead body, even loved ones. Joseph knows Iesu is alive, no tradition or law is violated. But Iesu is wounded. It is vital that they move him to a cave where they can treat him in secret. They move the body to a cave in a garden that belongs to Joseph. A boulder is moved to cover the entrance. A hidden doctor waits to tend to Iesu. He is alive but the wound has seriously injured him. He must be moved to a safer location where he can heal. Under the cover of darkness, Iesu is moved. The cave is found empty the next morning. Iesu is gone. The legend of the resurrected Son of God is about to be born. Convinced the rabbi is safe, Joseph moves to protect the family of Iesu. Preparations had already been made to whisk Mary and the children away in a hired boat. As the boat and its cargo departs, Iesu is told they are on their way. They will be safe. Joseph makes his way to the southern shores of what will become known as France. Followers come with the family, the Jews establish a colony. Iesu had wanted to claim the throne of earth for mankind and its children. He had intended to discard the system, to awaken mankind to the lizards. Time had worked against him. Ieyasu died in the Far East, his wife and children were well, the blood of Ieyasu survived. The lizards were still unconcerned, the omnipotent God concept is unchallenged. The manipulation of minds and the reprogramming continued.